morality.
Tonight, we discuss the conclusion of Strange New Worlds, then we'll discuss the latest episode of the Orville, and conclude tonight's discussion with the latest episode of The Old Man. All this coming up right now on The Writer Brothers. And welcome back to your Tuesday night recap for, well, really the conclusion for Star Trek, the continuation of the Orville and the Old Man. I am, of course, joined by the other two writer brothers, Corione, Witch in Residence, and, of course, John, a.k.a. Pollo Zapatos. Gentlemen, mentioned it earlier privately. I'm going to go ahead and remind who wants to do a quick rundown recap of the season finale of Strange New Worlds.
Oh, I put that one on you. I'll do Orville.
All right, so Petey, why don't you take that one? And we'll
all right, in the latest episode, in the conclusion of Strange Unoriginal Rehashing, the Enterprise is, well, it's just mostly hanging out because Pike has found a way, or the Enterprise is reprovisioning a station on the edge of the neutral zone on the Romulan and Federation border. And while this provisioning is taking place, Pike happens to meet one of the cadets from his future, his very grim future, at least as far as he knows. Unfortunately, no one showed him the plot of I believe it was The Cage is what they remastered that TOS episode into. Because Pike actually gets a happy ending. Spoiler alert. So he finds a way to possibly get out to retcon his future, and of course gets met by future version of himself, also played by Anson Mount, go figure. He was wearing the motion picture era uniform, as I refer to it, or Wrath of Khan uniform, as some people know it as. Or at least in this...
the Lost era, it's also called as well.
Oh, wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Which I was kind of excited to see. It was total fan service. I got a little excited. That is one of my favorite eras in all of Star Trek, and so I was very, very giddy to see Captain Pike wearing my favorite Starfleet uniform. And even though it seemed a little bit sloppy because they just basically took a red shirt and tried to put the Lost era on it. New subscriber. Graham LeMay has subscribed. Graham, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the discussion. All right, continuing on. So Pike meets his future self. His future self says, well, if you change history, it's bad. And he pulls out the Klingon time crystal, shows him why it's not such a good idea to try to change his future. And so once he goes through, he experiences an alternate reality of the Balance of Terror, which is arguably one of the greatest episodes of science fiction in general, not just Star Trek. I actually watched Balance of Terror beforehand, so I would know what I'm going into with this episode. And basically plays out a scenario where Kirk is put in command of the Farragut, since Pike wouldn't have stepped down. Kirk goes on a different set of adventures that wind him up losing his ship in the process, and Pike telling him that he's wrong. But of course, Pike's overly dramatic Picard-style diplomacy doesn't pay off, and in the end, Spock gets injured, nearly killed, and that is really the future that needs to be preserved, is that Spock can't die, and so that's why he must not change his fate. However, the episode concludes with number 1 being arrested for being an Illyrian, and now Pike has motivation going into season 2 to at least try and change her fate from the one he saw. Overall, I thought the episode was okay. Rounding off this season that honestly was the most poorly written first season of anything I have ever watched. It took a lot of leaps and a lot of really just put that hand in the cookie jar and then just ate the cookie jar. Ever since episode 6, like most of the episodes I could argue for, I thought the series opener was strong, but ultimately I think with the conclusion of rehashing, of sort of not really rehashing, but doing an alternate future Balance of Terror, wasn't the worst idea they had, but certainly not. They probably could have done something a little more exciting. But gentlemen, I've done enough talking for one stream. Not really, but Corion, you didn't seem to like a lot of this one, so we'll let you go first.
Yeah, I 100% agree that they reached into the cookie jar, only instead of eating the cookies from the cookie jar, they somehow ate the cookie jar itself and left the cookies alone. Look, there's a lot.
Do you mean the Mocklins Bortus?
Well, I mean, that would have made things better, but look, first, for deciding that Spock can't die, given that, like, we have literally 2 movies about Spock's death and resurrection, makes it kind of iffy on that. But, I won't even go there. What I will go is, first, if you're going to get somebody to play Kirk, have him, play Kirk, not random generic captain. Because this Kirk did not feel like Kirk. When Kirk got on that bridge, the fact that, like, he wasn't, like, waving goodbye to a yeoman on the turbo lift as he exited the turbo lift, just didn't feel right, okay? He didn't have that Kirk swagger. And even if you're not going to, like, ape one of the, examples we've seen of, Kirk, either by William Shatner or by, who played him in the remake movies? Chris Pine. I mean, both of them had slightly different takes on Kirk, but both of them, you had the essence of Kirk there. This guy couldn't even manage that. That threw me. That was like, it didn't work. Whenever Klingon time crystals, quote unquote, show up, I'm not particularly happy about it. These came out of the Discovery era and they haven't made sense. And it's just furthering the Discovery has to exist because we have to justify Discovery line of thinking, and I'm just not a fan of that. We get teased Scotty without actually seeing him, which I thought was just kind of lame. Like, if you're gonna go Scotty, like, go, I don't even know, like, bagpipes to the wall Scotty, right? Like, don't like half-ass it.
Well, that just goes back to the idea of Hemmer being, like, taken out. Like, yeah, we get it, eventually Scotty's got to get on the ship, but, like, for you to kill everybody's favorite character and then his replacement gets a voice line.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, give me actual Scotty or don't. But don't screw around like this, right? So that's one. Two, the guy who's playing Spock aped a lot of the Spock lines from Balance of Terror, which worked reasonably well. But the problem is, look, the reason why he was able to get away with what he was able to get away with saying in the original Balance of Terror was because Kirk backed him every step of the way, because the two of them were very good friends. This doesn't know Spock. So the fact that a lot of the tension on board the ship didn't happen doesn't make sense at all. Especially when you consider that they had Ortega's playing the role of the individual that was doubting whether Spock was Vulcan or Romulan the whole time, when she is arguably served with Spock probably the longest. The logical person, ironically, in this episode, to turn on Spock and have a problem with him is actually Kirk. Which would have earned a lot of respect from me, because I could sit there and I could go, well, yeah, they're not friends in this one. They're not basically brothers. This makes sense. This works. But did we go there? No. This episode played a very risky game and then refused to take risks. And ultimately, that was the error Pike made, was that he didn't take sufficient enough risks like Kirk would have. Well, the director of this episode didn't take sufficient enough risks and plunged the series into basically obscurity. That's how I see it. Like, you couldn't have had a more meta, example of what not to do than this episode.
Yeah. John, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of the points that I would have hit, especially just because, like, I feel like as far as trying to do a timeline, and especially when you're trying to mess with multiple timelines, like, you have to write the end game out at the beginning. You have to start at how Pike dies, how you're going to finish the series. Even, and I get it, like, with Hollywood and all that stuff, like, there's no guarantee your season 2 is ever coming, or season 3, or even season 10, right? Even if you've been doing great, people can cut you because they think that's the best thing to do, and that's happened a ton of times, and they've been completely wrong. And that's something I feel like this show, and pretty much all things Paramount, are banking on. They're like, we're gonna do a season and it might work. Oh, you guys want another one? All right, we'll do another season. And it's not going to be congruent. It's not going to be contiguous. It's not going to make any sense. We're going to pretend like it does. We're going to say it does. And this show, like...
Right, and if you say it doesn't, your insert buzzword of the week here.
Yeah, exactly. Or just insert all of them at the same time, because that's the easiest way to just blanket everybody else is wrong. And that's, to me, what this show really resembles, is like, the Gorn really felt like they were going to be this fun, new, never before seen enemy that was actually
never to be seen enemy.
Yeah, even never to be seen. That would be even cooler, like Predator without ever uncloaking, right? And or even just like we get to see maybe like their ships chasing somebody. That would be interesting, right? We don't ever actually get to see who the pilot is, but we get to see their like cockpit maybe. But all we're getting is, I don't know, man. It feels like
crap.
A wannabe attempt at a quirky new sci-fi drama, but it's already filled with so much lore and history. And then these writers are like, no, it's not. Never read it, never seen it, doesn't exist. Everybody that loves it, they're dumb. They don't know what they're talking about. It's old. It's too old for me, even though it came out while I was still alive. I don't know. It really just feels like the popular kids in high school who plagiarized the nerd, and for some reason this principal is siding with the popular kid who's never turned in a good paper in their life.
I've heard Strange New Worlds explained as Star Trek for people who hate, or written by people who hate Star Trek.
Oh, that's Discovery. That was
Yeah,
Discovery
well,
right out of the
Same
gate.
thing that happened with Halo, everything post Halo 3.
Same with Pucard. Pucard is the same way. Like
But,
I
yeah,
skipped season 3, so I might fall, or I skipped season 2, so I might fall on the season 3 sword since I skipped the misery that was Pucard season 2. And you know, I was gonna go into my justifications for this episode, but honestly, Corion, your whole perspective really just hits it on the head. And I'm only gonna come to season 2 for Strange New Worlds because the fact that they at least did this show was at least a step in the right direction. They listened to the fans that were excited to see Pike on screen. They show that they can try and they have potential to do it. But the thing is, you know, writers, here's the thing. Even though I might come try season 2, the expectations are going to be all the higher, though. Because, while we always say the first 3 seasons of Star Trek can be a bit rough to start, and sometimes they can be, they still have a lot of good ones, as John has just learned watching the show very recently. There's still a lot of heavy hitters. There's not a single heavy hitter in Strange New Worlds Season 1.
Let's acknowledge why all of the old stuff sucks. It's old. It's old filming, old costumes.
I disagree.
Old cinematography. No, and I mean in terms of like, if you're a new viewer who doesn't want to watch that, one of the main reasons is because it's old.
The visuals can be hard to accept, yeah.
Yeah,
suspension of disbelief
don't
is
get
harder.
any HD, because like nothing stretches. It's always in that smaller screen. So it's like all these things that we've come accustomed to don't exist in those. But if you go back to the writing, if you were to read the scripts alone and nothing else, you would see a perfectly well done sci-fi film.
Although,
Like it literally feels like cinematography is the only thing that's lacking in those films. In every show.
Okay, but hear me out. There is something that the original Trek has that no other Trek has had since, and really, really should. And that is the yeoman in very, very short skirt. And arguably, that makes the show a lot better.
I still think that was the nice thing about TNG was when they put Riker in a skirt too, and nobody talks about it the whole time. I was like, yeah, I feel like that's where people are going with clothing.
Yeah, I mean, like it didn't bother anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, there is an episode where he does mention about it. Like, him and Worf are both in their dress uniforms, and Worf is like, "I hate wearing dresses," and Riker's like, "That's a xenophobic, outdated." Statement, Mr. Worf. And besides, you have great legs for this. And you know what? Like, dude, that's the kind of fun you can have with that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the thing that I feel like these shows aren't doing anything with. Like, one of the things that I love about Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek is the fact that, like, he actually believed in a utopia. And so he drew that utopia. He believed that gender roles and racial bias and all that stuff wasn't going to play a factor because he knew it was childish. Like, it's detrimental to society, it's detrimental to growth. Team is the only way. Like, teamwork makes the dream work. So everybody has to be a respected member of the team, and everybody has to be a fully, like, believed in member of the team. You have to have faith in your teammates, and that's what Gene Roddenberry painted. None of his characters are actually weak women. Damsel in distress, that's because she got kidnapped. They're not like, oh, this woman could never actually be saved without Kirk. It's like, no, she was in a position where she couldn't be saved without the cunning thought of her teammates actually, outsmarting the enemy without being trapped. And that's a reasonable damsel in distress story. Even guys get put in the damsel in distress story in almost every other episode. Riker gets pinned sometimes, Worf gets pinned sometimes, like all
Picard.
Those things. Yeah, Picard. Like, these are all instances of damsels in distress.
Oh.
And the team saves them.
Oh,
so we called
Picard
them
had like one of the most brutal in Next Gen, twice. Like, not just the first time, like Best of Both Worlds was bad. But when he gets pinched by the Cardassians, that's worse.
Well,
You know,
they play it off on screen as though it's worse, but he still had himself about. Man, that's really a tough one. Assimilated by the Borg, tortured by the Cardassians. I think we need a whole show just to figure that one out. And this is what's interesting is John, you're kind of the younger generation, at least compared to me, and you're enjoying the original Next Gen more than you're enjoying New Trek. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. And it's like I said, it's because of the writing. Like, the writing stands the cinematography. And like when I'm talking about cinematography, I'm talking about fake shakes. Like, I can do a perfect Kirk in his ship right now. I'm under attack, guys.
Well, even just the
I can see that.
Even just the thing that always stood out for me was, even if a member of the crew is not getting necessarily on board with the with the problem of the week, like they're taking like an opposing viewpoint, they're still professional about it. They're still respectful. They're like, look, I don't
respectful in what, Corione?
Well, in discourse, of course. All right. But like,
let's
say,
take
like,
a drink. I don't have any.
But the point is, like, even if they're like, I don't agree that this, robot that we've come across is actually a life form, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to explore that, because it's important for you to explore that and come to a conclusion that we can all agree to.
Right. I'm not gonna take my phaser to the robot to make sure that I'm confirmed correct.
Right?
Because I'm that insecure.
Right. But that is something 100% that I could see in New Trek happening. Right.
Well, yeah, and of course, it's Mikey Burnham that does it too, and she saves the day, and everyone's like, oh, if you didn't blow up that robot, which we may or may not know was a unique life form, oh, clearly a bunch of puppies in Africa would have all died, or some ridiculous explanation. And that's really the problem with New Trek. John, you hit the point again, that Star Trek's great because everybody gets a chance. We don't think back to the original series and we just think Kirk and Spock. Everyone who actually watches Star Trek goes, oh man, remember that episode about Uhura? Oh, remember when Chekhov did a thing and Sulu did that? And I have trouble remembering those specific types of moments, because I'd be better if this was DS9 trivia, and I'm just trying to throw an example out there. Remember the episode where Kira started the resistance again because of the government? Or remember
the episode when the female security head
Tasha Yar
died? Tasha Yar, when she died?
Tasha Yar passed away.
Yep.
Like, that's one of people's most reverent episodes of all time.
Oh, the episode that will always stand out for me in Next Gen was Measure of a Man. And that's one of the early episodes too. But that's an episode that comes out just swinging. And
that's an episode that centers around Data, that has Picard and Riker pitted against each other. Which, in the most professional and just, oh my gosh, Measure of a Man is a fantastic piece of work.
Let's talk about that professionalism point, because it's not just professionalism by American.
John, I just want to tell you right now, we've been through a lot, and there's a whole lot more to go through. But I love you.
I know, I was going to Discord, but now that you have an emotional issue, I can't find my food.
I know you're trying to say a good speech, but I can't contain myself. Oh, man.
Gentlemen, do not make me use my witchy powers to slap you both through the screen.
Just shoot your witchy powers down. I was never going to do that on this show, but you had to bring the magic into it, and I'm like, you know what? Here's your magic. Here's your practical magic.
Well, let's go back to the professionalism point, because
that's actually a good idea. Let's go back to professionalism. I agree.
In the show, it's not American professionalism. It's not military professionalism. It is Starfleet professionalism. They
NASA.
I don't know who
space
did
program type professionalism.
Not even close. No, it's its own, because
Okay, I'll give you
NASA
that.
was sexist. NASA was racist.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking
military
present
sexist,
day
racist.
NASA.
Even modern day NASA isn't as efficient as Starfleet is, and that's what I'm talking about. Is
Closer
Gene
than they were
Roddenberry imagined and developed a wholly real set of standards, ethics, morality that also is in turn created by the society that all these people come from. So like the people that join the Enterprise in any adventure are not the kind of people that you will find barely making it outside. You know, like when they leave their house, they're barely going to make it to the store without a panic attack or some form of mental fallacy or anything like that. These are the people that are supposed to be the best of the best, to be on the best ship of the best ship. And
well, hold on, you forgot. You have to have a tragic backstory, apparently, on the Enterprise.
yeah, why? What? Like, I thought this was utopia. How has everybody got somebody who's died in some murder mystery?
No, LaForge didn't have a tragic backstory.
Modern.
I don't. Wasn't there a whole thing with his mom though, or was that?
That's an episode. There's a difference.
Yeah, but wasn't that like past trauma included though? Or
no,
was that
no,
real time?
That was real time.
Real time. She shows up.
Also, I mean, Deanna Troi didn't really have a tragic backstory unless you count having Lwaxana Troi as a mother as a tragic backstory.
No, not at all. That's a tragic existence.
Well, no, see, those are things that like make sense. Like your parents being better than you, and you're trying to live up to everything they've lived up to. Like that adds up in a utopian society. You shouldn't be outpacing your parents by the day you're 25 because they didn't live to 24. Yeah. You know, and that's what a lot of these stories seem to just do, is they take everything American, everything somebody in LA can relate to, and then they pretend like that happened for the next 500 years.
And that there was a war fought over.
Oh, and the war resolved all wars, but still everything is in turmoil. Like the whole idea of Ethiopia is still borderline being modern day Ethiopia. Wow. So the world didn't take care of the world. They did what? Like what? How did like the reason the Starfleet works is because it's the entirety of Earth. Like your options are live on Earth and be a member of the Union, do your thing, live your life, or earn your way into an exploratory vessel, or leave and go be a raider, go do whatever you want, because there's 1,000 shuttles, 1,000 teleporters, you can just go. And those are the options, but instead we're literally watching a story about Earth and Earth people suffering modern day Earth circumstances minus a shuttle crash, which, you know, also still happens today. Look at Apollo 13, right? So
Columbia,
nothing
Challenger
about this at all is special. Nothing is unique. Nothing makes Star Trek of the Strange New Worlds different from Earth of today. And that ruined Star Trek, because Star Trek was a standard to live up to and to aspire to. Hence why so many nerds loved it, because they were like, I'm going to go study physics and theoretical physics because maybe one day somebody will get to use my science to build NCC 1701D.
Yep. Stephen Hawking sat on the set of Next Gen in the engineering set. Spoke the infamous words, "I'm working on it." Sadly.
Exactly.
No, but that's part of the inspiration that Gene had.
He is. He was working on it. The problem is that
sadly he didn't complete it.
200 years behind.
PD, take a look at the Akumbe drive, my friend.
Okay.
Take a look at it. You're going to be very, very surprised how close we are.
Well, supposedly we still have to do a third world war, but I don't know which canon does New Trek take place in, because if it takes place in our universe, that makes a ton of sense all of a sudden, which it feels like it does. But it's always been my understanding that because 1996 went without a eugenics war, that we've accepted that Star Trek is its own timeline, and specifically TOS, TNG, Deep Space Nine and
But
then
if you're gonna do
Voyager,
that,
and then
you
Enterprise
have
comes
to
along and
cast
starts
a
its own
whole new group
timeline.
of characters, and you have to change the ship in every single way, not just the captain's quarters. Right?
Yeah.
Because like if you're gonna like modern times, why would we have giant exposed warp nacelles? Those things would be buried in the middle of the ship. Right?
Well,
It's gonna be hard to start a warp field like
It-
that, but
it depends on how. I mean,
Well,
look,
if you base it on waves, it would encompass from the inside out.
yeah, but it also depends on how much distance you need to have those nacelles from anything else so that it doesn't actually damage other systems, right?
But the majority of the system is running, like everything, especially like, and this is just from what the show has told us, everything is running from those warp nacelles. Everything. From the reactor, the internal reactors, which is fusion, which isn't radioactive, which means if the warp nacelles are the ship, then they're actually running off of a fusion reactor, and a fusion reactor is just a perpetual source of energy. So then how does it keep going out? Like all the questions that they're dealing with, they aren't. They're just making it up.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's be honest. That's always been the thing, right? I mean, they've been making this stuff up since the 60s, but...
Right, but at least since the 60s up until like the 2000s, they maintained continuity.
Yeah, and they at least tried to make some of this make logical sense, at least.
Yeah,
like
and according to 60s science, that makes sense.
Yeah, and in fact, if you actually take a look, you know, for next gen, this was, I think, a first at the next gen era. They actually released a technical manual for the Enterprise, and they actually explained some of the pseudoscience behind all of this, or at least the show science behind how a lot of the stuff works. It's actually a cool read.
yeah. So real quick, the only thing I can think of that I liked was the ending to this show, because we do have motive for season 2. Like I said, I'm gonna show up to season 2 and we'll go from there. But
I do want to jump on one thing I forgot to mention I didn't like. How the hell did future Pike and future not future Kirk show up on the ship at the end? And then also they weren't there. And then they also were there. But then also
Klingon time crystal
Time crystal in the future sent them to the past, both of them, even though Kirk died already.
Oh no, it's literally Klingon space magic. That's the answer to this is it's Klingon space magic. I ain't got to explain shit.
There's like 800 witches in this world that could probably help them understand magic in at least a rudimentary sense so that they would stop just going Klingon space magic makes our thing work because we suck at writing.
Yeah.
Do some research, boys.
No, you're getting a good ones in tonight, man. We gotta start writing down time stamps for clips. Yeah, I can't really think of anything. Like I said, I was gonna try and talk. At first, I kind of like the militaristic, more believable Kirk style, but then again, I don't, I really would like just Shatner's Kirk to stay Shatner's, for the same reason that I want Ledger's Joker to just stay Ledger's Joker. But yes, John, you're right. At this point,
stealing
just
and
give
then
us,
bastardizing.
Just give us a new date. If you want, the big name characters to just walk on for an appearance or a cameo every now and then, fine, whatever. But that,
which is what I feel like the Orville would have done if it was in Trek, right? We would have met Picard, we would have met Kirk, we would have done all of these events. We would have seen, like, anytime they're messing with time, we would have seen.
But it would have been
Enterprise doing its thing, and it would have just been in a cursory, like, oh, did you guys notice that the actor who played Captain Kirk from Name a Time walked across in the background?
Yeah, and it would have been like Trials and Tribulations from Deep Space Nine, one of the best Star Trek episodes ever.
That is by far one of the masterworks of friggin' Trek. Like, if you're a Trek fan, that was like fan service from moment one to the end.
It's one of my favorites, definitely in my top 10. And
although, we should be careful discussing it because I don't think we want a meeting with temporal investigations, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, don't worry, John. Once you watch Trials and Tribulations, you'll see, like, you'll realize that, yeah, DS9 really was the best that Trek has ever had to offer, and I mean, look how well it's aging. We're people are talking about it now than they ever have before. And I would like to see that continue. And I'm almost tempted to honestly consider doing another show for us themed around a watch through on DS9. We'll talk about that more.
Yeah, like a DS9 rewatch.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and this is actually something I would posit to the audience. Like, if we tell you which episodes we're going to try and watch, and if we do it in whatever order we decide, like, do you guys want to watch along? Let us know. Even if you don't really want to follow along, like, we'll still tell you, like, hey, we're going to watch episodes 3, 4, and 5 today.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to watch 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? And then you guys can join us in the watching or in the discussion.
Well, I know there's another channel out there that is actually about to start doing that. I might actually have to reach out to him and see, hey, you want to cross the streams? All right, moving on now. The Orville delivered an episode that I'll share my thoughts once we get a summary from down below.
All right, so episode 6 opens with Malloy singing, and apparently just everybody on the Orville has a beautiful singing voice. I listened to it again, and I almost just restarted the episode twice just to re-listen to it. It's wonderful singing, just like Bortus is singing. Then we go, so it's a dinner party that Malloy's hosting. Charlie obviously finds the iPhone, asks him about it, so once Charlie and Malloy discuss the episode where, Malloy found the iPhone, then they introduce the Armin, right? No.
Arnanoff
device. And so that basically they take the time to explain it. So they talk about temporal paradox due to change in events. So anytime you know what's supposed to happen and you mess with it, you create a paradox. So then they run the experiment. Then the Planetary Union, they notify the Admiral Board that they've built a time traveling device, and the Planetary Union is not cool about that. Mostly just because if there is a time travel device, now everybody that is their enemy, A, knows it's real, so they know that they can actually study it and invent it. And then B, now we're going to start playing time cops, where we have the potential for just circle loops of tons of time episodes that don't make any sense and lose a lot of fun. If you look at the Marvel or the DC show on CW that did that, it just spun itself out of control real fast. Then the Kalons attack. Malloy is the one that ends up going to run to destroy the machine. I don't know if anybody noticed this. I haven't heard it in anybody's reviews, but Malloy never shot. He never pulled the trigger, which is important because for some reason the device was supposed to be fully off, but as they're overloading the core, a thing happens, which to me, I'll explain later. So then from there, Malloy never shoots the machine. So they escape. Then as they're trying to figure out what happened to Malloy, because he's the only person that hasn't reported in, they receive a message from Malloy in 2015, 6 months after landing on Earth in 2015. Then cut to them doing research about what happened to Malloy. Turns out he died at 96 as a pilot and flight engineer in the year 2068, which is odd to me that they found out his birth record, especially because I don't know how old he's supposed to be in 2015, theoretically, according to how old he really is. But how would they know that he was 96? And how was he able to produce fake documents in the growing technological age? That's something that I am confused about. But anyway, so then there's explained that the younger Grayson was teleported to the ship. So that's something that's never actually been explained yet since season 2. Grayson just showed up, and they say that it's because she was thinking about it before, but that doesn't explain how younger Grayson got teleported there. And rather than in the case of Malloy, he gets teleported back in time, whereas in the case of Grayson, she just shows up on the ship. And they say it has something to do with the nebula, which all of this I feel is important. But to continue on, then we have the human cognition played a role in the temporal displacement. temporal mechanics, always in flux, superpositioning until observation is decided. I can't remember exactly the words they used. Temporal law is brought up like 4 different times, but it's never explained where it came from or what it means. According to the show, I did notice that there were 3 rings that like exploded out of the ship when they finally time traveled back in time to go find Malloy. Turns out they end up there 10 years late, so 10 years after the 6-month message. Gordon is established, he's living very nice life as a pilot and flight engineer, and he's apparently running his whatever it is. Like, I can't really tell if he runs the whole hangar, runs the whole airport, or if it's a private airport.
It looks like he's a charter pilot of sorts.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if he has like a whole fleet or just like 1 or 3 ships, whatever. But then next, Gordon clearly doesn't want to be rescued while he's like driving them back home. And then I didn't remember this at first, but he flat out says he's like, I'm not going back, before they even meet Laura or the child, which is then what happens next. Once they drive home, they meet Sam and Laura, or the son and Laura, which is Edward, named after Ed. And then this whole progression of the characters trying to deal with the fact that their shipmate / best friend does not want to come home with them. And we also have Charlie and the Kalon Isaac going on an adventure to find a rare earth metal that doesn't actually exist in 2015 as far as like 2015 science is concerned. So they have to go drill for it themselves and take just enough to refill the ship without also destroying the entire earth by messing with things like tectonic plates and all that stuff. And I'm glossing over that part mostly because as far as the story goes, that's going to be the continuation into the next episode. It really felt like the whole Isaac and Charlie relationship and conversation really felt like it was setting up the climactic resolve. And so Charlie and Isaac have a few hijinks, not so much actual story aside from their like character development and conversations. But then from there, we end up with the crew finally getting the Dysonium, finally going back in time again. But this time they went back in time 5 months before the message was sent, which means that they created a paradox according to their own established logic in the beginning of the episode. So something that like everybody from Orville Nation to Maria with Tiantelli, like I noticed that they're all talking about like which timeline we're in. We just found out the episode ended with a paradox. Like they knew.
I thought they went back to right after he sent the message and he was surviving for.
He's only been there for a month. That's what it says.
Oh, interesting.
Which means, how did he send the message to send them back?
If they didn't. Well, and then there's even more paradoxical.
Well, no, but these are all the paradoxes already contained within the episode, as described and prescribed by the episode. So all the law is already explained.
You're also forgetting the paradox of how did he know? This is the big one here. You already hit it with that. I must have missed that aspect. I thought they went right.
I had to rewatch the episode because we've been arguing about it all weekend.
Right, gotta get your facts straight. So, what I found troubling about the whole him transmitting the message in the first place was, one, how did he know the snowball's chance in Arizona during summertime know where to point the signal, when to point the signal, and precisely at what time would he have needed to transmit it from Earth so that as soon as it shot off, because you spin at like 25,000 miles an hour, I think is what it is.
5,000. 5,000
miles an hour. So there's a whole lot there. Like the whole Marty McFly getting the letter from Doc Brown in the past. Okay, that was much more believable than Gordon dumbass Malloy.
5 minutes after he disappeared.
Gordon Dumbass Malloy having the knowledge to be able to calculate when to send the signal, where to send the signal to, and how he knows how to get there. Like, people don't know how to get to places when they're transported there.
3 things explained according to the lore with each of those. He was the helmsman, so he was the one punching in their destination to get away from the Kalon already, so possibly he already knew where they were going. But he's also 100% educated in all things relativity, because he's a helmsman that runs a ship that messes with relativity.
And yet he's somehow still an idiot.
Okay, hold on. Are we actually going to get into the physics of this? Because we've got to start talking about the inverse square law then, and radio signals traveling that distance and not turning into background radiation noise. So he's limited by the technology of his time. What should have happened, honestly, was they receive an email because Gordon set up some sort of trust, a la Marty McFly. That would have solved that so quickly.
Yes, but see, because here's the thing. Take a trip somewhere using your GPS and only pay attention to your GPS. Then throw your phone away when you've driven out to the middle of nowhere and try to figure out your way back. It's a little bit harder than
Johnny.
Yes, it's not entirely impossible, but we're just talking driving a car on Earth. Now we're talking about trying to pre-plan where a ship's going to be, and as Corione said, that signal is going to be degraded by then.
Obviously, like, if you're messing with the signal and you're like you said, which is a very good point, the fact that the Earth is continuously rotating, that means that my theory is that he sent it to the nebula, and he shot a wide frequency band that would be wide enough to get the entire nebula, and that's.
Well, the thing is, though, too, really quick.
Add up the fact that,
I don't want to spend too much.
How would he be able to build that?
How would he be able to do that? And also, Corione's point fixes that plot hole right away. Because even if they go back in time to 1 month before he sends the message, they can just say, oh, here, we'll just make sure this goes out when it's supposed to, so we know to come get you.
It didn't. That's what I'm talking about.
They didn't do any of that, and I agree.
No, look, I agree. The primary
but that's the
issue.
show is they took the time to explain all these other things perfectly, and then they ignored like 8 of them, which tells me one of 2 things. Either Seth MacFarlane's not paying attention, which has yet to be proven, or all of this just set up a whole new timeline intentionally to create the New Horizons.
Oh, there's a temporal reckoning coming.
Well, and let's be clear here too. There's another piece of this equation too, because I think the number one elephant or Mocklin in the room, I guess is the best way to put it, is, guys, let's be honest. Kelly and Ed were kind of dicks in this episode. Like, a level of dick that we haven't seen yet.
They were finally officers.
No, but I mean, I get that. Like, but at the same time, like,
so I'll just.
This was a level of hard ass that we have never seen Ed even attempt to get near.
Yeah, and it was needless too. That's the thing and that's what I don't like about this episode, is that they literally could have had that argument with Malloy, and then they get hey, we have the Dysonium, and he's like, all right, I got you. And he says, all right, Gordon, have a nice life. Enjoy your family, enjoy everything. We'll just forget about you, I guess, and explain something else. And then they get back to the ship and go, yeah, we're going back in time one more time. And that's it. Yeah. And then there's no cheap emotional nonsense.
I didn't think that any of that emotion was cheap. Like, so both of those points, we've never seen Ed be harsh, and his harshness was purely like, I am an officer, I have laws to enforce, you broke all of them. Because the big thing that Malloy's doing.
Whoa, stop. I'm sorry. What? I can't accept that, on the simple fact, because why were they messing with this technology on the ship out in deep space in the first place? That's never established.
Yeah, it was. They got the Aronov device in season 1.
Yes.
And they've been working on it the whole time.
Yeah, that's.
And Aronov's been dead the whole time.
So the whole time they have the device on board the Orville and not in some locked up research facility, Area 51 type place.
No, because the ship itself is always moving, and nobody knows it exists except for Isaac and technically the Kalon, but it never achieved any form of temporal displacement until the beginning of this episode. Before
Wait a
that,
minute,
it
And
was
keep
rapidly
reaching this hard,
aging.
you're gonna break your arms.
Not just the Kalon know about it, the Krill know about it too. Because they tried to pinch
True.
it the
Yeah,
first
because they
time
tried
around.
to steal it. Yeah.
Basically, every galactic a-hole knows where this thing is.
But what they know about is a rapid aging device.
Oh.
The Aronov device originally is purely rapid aging. It creates a minor temporal displacement field, the first one of its kind according to the episode that it's originally opened in, and it only makes things super old, right?
Okay, but there
And
are so many applications for that, though, dude.
Right. But to focus an entire military might onto that seems negligent, especially for the fact that they already killed Aronov. So, like,
Okay,
theoretically, the device is
John?
gone.
So let me get this straight. You have a device that, if it was pointed at an opponent's home star, you could age it to the point of supernova or black hole, and you're telling me nobody really finds the tactical value in that?
It's not that people don't find the tactical value, it's that there's more repercussions to creating black holes whenever you want.
Okay, but
I
I
Krill
get
aren't
rid of the
exactly
Kalon
known for-
home system in
no, what
one
I-
shot.
What I'm saying more is that it's more like being caught, like, bogged down by metadata, right? So, like, there is so many devices, so many different people studying different things, and we find out in this episode, and it opens, that the Aronov device is 100% like nobody knows how to fix it, and they're messing with it, they're tinkering. And yeah, obviously, like, it is a super useful strategic device, but the fact that the Orville keeps disappearing and nobody knows exactly where it is until they start sending messages, it's like a moving black hole, or not black hole, black site, right? So the device is always moving. Nobody knows that it's on the Orville anymore. Like, what's to say the Orville didn't drop it off at another black site? That's the other part that
But
like,
I mean, that's the kind of logic, like, well, only an idiot would think we'd hold on to it, therefore we're gonna hold on to it.
well, no,
Right?
so like the logic again is still that, like, it's not about, like, we're holding on to it because, like, nobody's gonna think we're holding on to it. It's more just like we're gonna hold on to it because nobody else wants to.
We're gonna hold on to it because we need a plot device.
But I don't think this, like, yeah, okay, I get that. I get that it's a plot device to an extent, but at the same
No,
time,
it
it's
is
also
the
just a
plot
device
device.
within the plot.
No device, no plot.
Like, this is literally the MacGuffin device.
It's-
like they.
But it's not. It didn't MacGuffin anything.
It's,
Like, I'm
what?
I'm telling you, this whole thing was a paradox. Like, they established the rules. They said what it was going to do. They said what would happen if they didn't put the sandwich back. The sandwich didn't get put back because Malloy didn't stay there for 5 months to send the message to tell them to come get them. So they actually never went back and got him, except for the one time that they did, which means all the superpositions that they could have been in have been completely deleted because they broke all of them in a row by going back before, which then resulted in the device being obliterated.
Also,
Which tells us even more that A, they can't just use this device again whenever they want, and B, they did it wrong because the device wouldn't have been obliterated if they did it right, because it wasn't obliterated after the first jump back.
Okay, also, I am going to say this, though. And I think this is reminding me of the sandwich. It says this. We've all studied writing. Who 100% thinks that that's going to be Chekhov's sandwich? Like, that sandwich is going to come back and be like some super critical moment down the line and, like, wind up saving the ship or something ridiculous along those lines.
Probably.
I think it's definitely going to be Chekhov's sandwich, but I think it's going to be more like Malloy gets trapped in engineering and he's been there for 2 days, nothing to eat.
All right. So, is there anything else on what we not like that we finish it off? Because, like I said, I didn't like the way that they behaved because it wasn't necessary if you just go back in time anyway, but that's already been labored at this point. Anything else?
Yeah, I think the other piece of it too, I'm going to start referring to her as Ensign Karen. Ensign Karen and Isaac. Yo, I don't know a biker bar that if, dude whooped the strongest guy in the bar, and some chick is like, well, I guess your bike's now mine now. There wouldn't be a fight that erupted in that bar. There is nobody that's going to allow that to walk away. I much would have preferred a Terminator moment, like
there are some
where Isaac just walks in and is like, I need your boots, your jacket, and your keys, and just like Terminators his way through there, because that would have been way funnier.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Well, it's actually because, it works for me.
The
because
person that they beat wasn't the person that they bet the bikes on, right? So like the guy that they arm wrestled, they're like, he will beat the biggest guy here, and then he does, and they get their bikes. And these two dudes are like I definitely agree if it was like a Sons of Anarchy biker bar, but they also did promise to return them. So it was like,
oh well, that just makes all the difference.
Obviously, it was like
then,
the
right?
nicest biker bar you could ever get into,
right?
But at the same time, like, I don't know, I'm not gonna hold the Orville to these standards that literally no other show meets up to, especially when it comes down to a Sons of Anarchy biker bar versus any potential bar that has bikers sitting at it.
Okay,
I met a lot of Marines that would make that
this
fair
would be
trade.
the biker bar that, like, during the week these guys are like insurance salesmen, and then but they dress up as toughs on the weekend. I mean, like, that's what we're looking at here.
That's actually a real thing, though.
Oh, I know,
there's
but
tons of bikers that do that, and I mean the neighborhoods there. Like I said, I haven't seen a show today that's ever actually achieved even a semblance of this level of continuity, even in one episode, let alone across 3 seasons. So for them to have a little bit of simplicity in certain instances, I can forgive it. Not necessarily because I don't think they're capable of writing it better, but more just because, like, they didn't put a lot of effort into it. And I feel like the only thing that would have fixed that moment would have been if, they did try to fight and then Isaac just broke his arm. Right? He's like, wait, you cheated. And he's like, nope, I'm just better than you. And then flip the biggest guy in the room.
Okay, but how much more fun would it have been to have that Terminator moment? How much fun would you have had watching him do that and have them be like, what the hell is this Terminator shit?
To happen? Right? What? When you saw the biker bar, how much were you thinking, oh, he's going to Terminator? And then you get a baby arm wrestle that gets them the bikes with minimal conflict. Like, if anything, that's the most, like, pull the rug out from under the Terminator.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. Think about this. Think about the level of character conflict that suddenly causes between him and Ensign Karen. Right?
True.
Because now she's sitting there going like, holy crap, he is a murder bot. Right? It would have... And then we've got a whole... We could literally have a whole Sarah Connor Isaac moment here and completely have played around with that motif the whole time.
Yeah, because their story was the one I actually enjoyed, even despite all the issues that you're talking about.
Yeah, like it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, but even then, for what the character development we got, that was the part of the episode that I did like, was that they had that conversation, and it's like, well, still, I'm thankful either way. And, didn't really win her over, but he's at least seeded the potential for a...
Well, and she seeded the potential for him to find love.
Possibly.
Right? Because, like, I think one of the things that makes love and all these emotions hard for Isaac is nobody's constant. So there is no through line that he can follow. There's no, like, some people will get really pissed off and then he'll be like, why are you pissed off? And they'll be like, well, because I didn't get my sandwich, right? And he's like, that why don't you just be an adult about it, you know? So I think that, like, her remaining 100% professional, like, even so much so the fact that, like, when they go on the ship, like, she doesn't complain that she was the one picked. She doesn't do anything to, like, be like, can you just pick somebody else? She's just like, no, it's my mission. I have a mission. I have a job. I'm gonna go do it. Don't like the guy I got to do it with at all. I hate his guts. He's a murderer and a piece of shit, but I have a mission. I'm going to do it. And she maintains professionalism. And then even then when Isaac goes, like, I'm saying, thank you. Aren't you going to, like, avail my thanks with a what? You're welcome. And she's like, no, you're not welcome. I didn't do it for you. I'm not about you. Like, and he's like, wait, you're breaking all the rules that humans say are part of being human. And yet you're also still following all the rules. Like, you're maintaining professionalism, but you do hate my guts. You maintain a murderous rage, but you save my life. And so, like, she really pits this idea of, like, love is enough to make you hate your shipmate, but that doesn't mean it's enough for you to sacrifice your role in the ship. And that tells Isaac that there's a point, like, love, it's not this willy-nilly you'll sacrifice anything for love. It's more that, like, when there's an opportunity to sacrifice, you sacrifice. But if the sacrifice only ends you in the dirt, like, there's no point to that sacrifice.
Well, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Oh.
So, was there anything else that that anybody did like about the episode? I mean, I
loved the explanation of the quantum drive and the quantum field.
Mm-hmm.
That felt like it was absolutely necessary. And now back to the point that you had brought up previously, Parker, like the quantum kind of, okay, I get why they quit there, especially in terms of, like, corporate. Like, what do we call this? What does it do? It messes with quantum relativity. All right.
Well, one of the things that I really like that nobody seems to have commented on, and again, I'm about to out myself as a major physics nerd, but did you guys notice that when they turned off the part of the quantum drive that, you know, effectively breaks known physics, and the ship goes through, like, the outside faster than light looks vaguely red?
Mm-hmm.
That's redshift. That's actually what happens when you start, or what should start happening when you approach the speed of light to relativistic objects not moving at the speed of light. Is the only spectrum that's going to get through is the red part of the spectrum.
interesting.
So that to me, I was sitting there like, okay, their science consultant on the set was awake for that, was awake for the special effects part.
Doesn't that much effort give credence to, like, the fact that these missed marks may or may not have been intentionally overlooked, so for the temporal reckoning, because they do still have to reckon everything back to the technically they have to go all the way back to the episode where they closed the gray hole.
Well, it's only time will tell for sure for me, because it's like, I mean, yeah, this season's definitely had good episodes, and I don't hate the show. It's just it just feels like they relied heavily on plot devices to move the plot along, and to me, that's like, and I think it's because of what you guys have pointed out, the fact that they were more focused on the physics and trying to make it believable, which credit were due there. Because, I mean, in the end, the thing about science fiction is really the best science fiction is pretty much just educated guessing. And it's stuff that learns how to rely on setting limits and rules for yourself. And that's the problem with sorry to go back to Star Trek, but that's the big difference between Orville and Kurtzman Trek, is that Kurtzman Trek just thinks that, oh, it's sci-fi land, we could just do whatever we want with no accountability, and everything works when it needs to, and it doesn't work when we need suspense. And that's why Kurtzman Trek is a failure, because it basically thinks that you, the viewer, are an idiot. That is what New Trek teaches you. And it's going to make sure that you feel stupider, or that it glorifies you being an idiot, is what I'm trying to say. Orville does not. Orville does not treat its audience like it's stupid, but it also is trying to work towards a more intellectually developed audience, or at least people that are willing to have those types of ideas and thought process. And that's why the Orville works, is because it's doing what Star Trek used to do. But it also knows when to have a little bit of fun, and I think they've been a bit more serious this season. It's probably going to happen with a show like this. It's not going to be as consistent. So, I don't completely hate the episode. There were aspects of execution that I feel I would have done differently, and that's really my main complaints. Otherwise, it's still good. Still looking forward to next week. Next week looks very interesting. But any continuing thoughts on last week's episode, or any other big issues you want to talk about?
I just think it's awesome that we're sitting there going, like, we didn't have a problem with the episode per se, but we're like, this is what we tweak to make it even better. That, to me, at the very least, says we're engaged, which puts it well beyond some other shows that we've watched on this series and pretty much cried our way through.
Yeah. See, I don't feel like, John, you're sitting there defending this show, this episode in particular, ironically enough, to the same way that a lot of the K-Trek fans, or Drekkies as they're sometimes referred to, will defend New Trek. The difference, however, though, is, John, is you're being respectful, and your points are not stupid. So...
like, they're reasonable points, right? Like, that's the nice thing about this, right? Like, we're actually at a situation here where it's like, you know, it's like this apple and this orange. Well, I wasn't particularly a fan of this particular orange, but oranges overall are pretty good. You know, like, if that's the worst we can say about this, it is arguably probably, like, the best writing we've seen in a while, right? Like, overall.
Yeah.
Not only is it in terms of, like, what we like if we bring it back to, like, what we are arguing, we're arguing the same thing that, like, if we were 3 teachers grading this paper, right?
Yeah.
We're like, I don't think that they maintained continuity, and I'm like, yeah, but has anybody ever even come close to maintaining the amount of continuity that they've maintained? Like,
yeah, it's 3 teachers arguing on whether this is a B plus, or an A. And, like, that's pretty solid overall.
You know what? That's how we need to close each segment, too. Because that seems to be... a lot of people seem to like rating systems. And we need to really get heavier on our 7-point rating system as displayed in Poyos de Pados' background image with the logo there. Or the logo in the corner there. I can't really see the Septagons easily. But I would say... you know, for this episode, for me, I've rated it a 4 out of 7. I didn't hate it. Would I watch it again? I probably not.
I think you're gonna want to if there is temporal reckoning and it actually does satisfy.
Right.
Then you're gonna want to go back and rewatch this and be like, oh, I did miss. Like, that's one of the things. Like, that's the vibe I'm getting. I should say that the reason I'm defending this show is mostly because I know Seth MacFarlane's writing to date. And as it stands, he has always been good at filling in all of his plot holes by either the end of the season or the beginning of the next season. And that's really what I feel like is inevitable. And therefore, I think anything anybody has a problem with, let's wait till the end of the season to see if any of that stands. Because his track record is proven, right? Like, yeah. Historically, he has not broken continuity of the Orville. He hasn't even broken continuity of Family Guy. How is that possible? You know, a show that has no continuity, yet every character maintains the character.
Well, and I'll be clear too. My overall series rating is still a 6 out of 7. Like, it's still been a good season so far. And yeah, we'll see what the rest of it has to hold, and I hope it wins Hulu over enough to keep the show around. I absolutely love it, and it's been good. Like I say, but for this episode, like I said, there's a few things that I think we all seem to agree or disagree that could have been better or worse. And then so real quick, and I'm not gonna change the graphics or anything, but I'm just gonna say real quick. So just going back to Star Trek real quick, what would we give the series rating overall? Starting with you.
I would probably give it, out of 7, probably a 2. It is not the most objectionable thing that I have seen, but man, you cannot get rid of 2 of the 3 characters we actually want to see development from and expect that we're going to hang around.
Fair point. It's actually a very, very fair point. John, what about you? Strange New Worlds.
I'm not gonna go back and rewatch it. That's a solid 4 out of 7, 3 out of 7. Honestly, if I can't go back and rewatch it, you didn't even meet the basic for C-.
Yeah, so I gotta say 4 for me, just because there were episodes I liked and did watch a couple of times, especially in the beginning. I think the first, they kind of followed the Star Trek Discovery Season 2 formula. We get a good start at the beginning, and then we just kind of fell off. And that's like, or Foundation. And that's really what's sad about it. It's like, so yeah, Season 2, Episode 1 had better be the greatest thing that I've ever seen, or, the greatest story ever told, or at least I better be feeling like it is, because otherwise it probably won't last long on this show, especially since you guys have been so favorable about it.
Well, I mean, I will say this. Okay, there's 2 pieces to this equation for Season 2. I know they're going to have to open with trying to get number 1 sorted out.
Yeah.
But here's the real problem with this. We know what Federation prisons are like. They're kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're actually kind of good. I mean, like, as somebody who would never want to go to a prison, if I was given the option to live the rest of my life in a Federation prison, that doesn't sound like too bad a deal.
No,
and
similar
yet,
to Norway's prisons? I don't know.
Yeah, like, actually, Norway's prisons look a little rough in comparison. Like, by the time of Voyager,
Don,
like the opening episode...
Get a link of some Norway prisons in the chat, please, for reference.
Yeah, like, by the time of Voyager, Paris is on apparently a penal colony in New Zealand.
Oh.
Dude, that penal colony looks better than most apartments I have seen in my city. Like, I know people that would be intentionally robbing, like, Cisco's dad's restaurant just to get sent there. Right? I mean, like, please put me in jail. And, and I'm sitting there going like, damn, right? Even in Deep Space Nine, they comment that, like, that's what you do when you're in jail. You get to hang around and chill out until your next counseling session. And I'm like, that sounds dope. I'm in, Like, what do I have to do to get sent to a Federation prison?
Who do I have to murder?
Yeah, like, who do I have to phaser to get sent?
I got some in-laws I can get rid of to send me to send me to Federation luxury prison.
That even goes more to displaying the utopia that, like, even prison and like Federation colony prison colonies, like, they're not meant to restrict you from living a life. They're just meant to restrict where you live that life.
Yeah, it's mostly about rehabilitation, which, I mean, I'm 100% all for. If somebody can be rehabilitated, I 100% feel they should be.
Yeah, I agree.
But even if they can't be rehabilitated, they shouldn't be constantly tortured every day.
Absolutely, right?
They should be restricted from interacting with society. Tops.
Well, I mean, I don't know. There are some parts of Starship Troopers that I wholeheartedly agree with in that, but that all being said, I mean, like, man, Federation prisons are just glorious, man. I'd be 100% down for that. Like, why anyone would complain about a Federation prison, like, I just don't know, right?
Well, it's probably because you're still in prison.
Okay, I could see...
I mean, dude, at the end of the day, Like, comparatively speaking,
You know,
it's
you
still
actually,
pretty damn good.
well, but is it though? Because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, I'm thinking, yeah, just throw me in a box and let me play my video games all day. And I'm like, no way, I would hate that because I'd be forced to stay in a box. So I don't think it's a matter of whether or not you make the prison nice. I think it comes down to because, and there's justification for this. Mythbusters, not to get too far off track, Mythbusters, basically, they did Chinese water torture, right? And if you saw that one, where they show where what's his name lies down and he's freely just, you know, let in there like drip, 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 and then they put I think her name was Carrie in it, and they actually like strap her into the bed, and she is forced to sit there, and she's like, yeah, I'm fine, and then they stop. She's like, yeah, you're okay, and then she starts crying. She's breaking down because she can't move. She's lost control. She has no control over her body to stop anything. She can't at no point stop what's happening, and so it's a psychological thing. So I think the prison aspect isn't so much like I don't think it matters how nice the prison is. Clean a turd is a turd.
All right, but that being said, where would you rather be? Rura Penthe or a prison colony in New Zealand?
I'd rather stay free.
Well, no, okay, so then, yeah, but that's the whole idea of not breaking laws. Is like,
well, that's the shit. I'm not planning on breaking the law, except maybe a speed limit or two. But other than that, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not intending on breaking any real laws, you know, like murder and rape and actual stuff. Oh, I donated $1 more to a political campaign than I should have. Looks like I might as well go to the same place as criminal serial killers.
Right, but I think like more, like, and there is research to support this in terms of like psychoanalysis or psychoanalytics, is the idea that like, especially if we go with Star Trek and all their those the rooms where you get to play with simulations and stuff, holodecks. Right, so like
hollow suites, depending on where you're at.
How much of prison really is a box if the only difference between roaming the world and roaming this prison colony is that every once in a while you have an appointment with a therapist?
The difference is I'm not choosing to be there of my own will.
Right, but that's where, like, especially like if we follow English common law, that's where the law would disagree with you. You broke the law, therefore you intentionally put yourself in a position where you need to be subjected to some form of rehabilitation.
Yes, now I'm no criminal mastermind, so I'm only making assumptions here based off of what I've observed and what I've talked to. But if I commit a crime of sorts, obviously I'm unless I'm of the mindset that I've already resolved I'm going to jail, I'm going to live in the penal colony. So this is where Corione's point would probably come forth, in that, yes, I would prefer to be in a Federation prison. However, that comes down to me at the time of breaking the law and what's going through my mind. Have I resolved the fact that I'm going to be in prison, or am I committing a crime like theft or something, and I'm intending to get away with it?
Okay, I guess here's my logic. Would you rather live in modern-day Detroit or get sent to a Federation penal colony?
Have
let
to
me
live
double
in
check
one or the other.
Yeah, let me double check the gun laws in Detroit, and I'll get back to you on that.
Oh, you mean you don't get to have a gun?
Yeah, if I don't get to have my guns, then that's a tough one.
Like 80% of them. I think you can only own a shotgun that is for bird hunting, tops. Detroit's one of the stricter ones. Chicago, I think, is
I know
the strictest.
Chicago's really strict.
Chicago's
New York blows, and California, of course, blows. But yeah, Detroit, Michigan specifically, Michigan as a whole is what I have to. Detroit, can be pretty rough, but I've also known people who went there on purpose and are still alive to this day. So, I mean,
hey man, my mother actually lives just across the river from Detroit.
How close would I be living to the Taco Bell?
How close are you to Flint, Michigan, and their water system?
These are valid questions for this thought experiment.
Got the same water system. Little known fact.
Because look, here's the thing. I might be living in Detroit, but I'm still doing whatever I want in Detroit. Not in prison.
I don't know, man. Like I said,
I don't either, honestly. I don't think I could actually give you a straight answer on that.
Which
that's
makes
a good
that
one.
fun.
Yeah.
That makes that question real.
Yeah, it does.
Yep.
All right. Any
All right.
more on the Orville before we move on to our sponsor, then our final segment?
Nah, let's get some sponsory goodness here.
All right. Tonight's broadcast is brought to you by CNC Sutlery. For all of your Civil War era supplies and any other type of era or well, Indian War era as well, please check them out. ccsutlery.com. They do international shipping. They have all kinds of costumes from whether you want specifically a Confederate soldier that was an infantryman or a Union soldier, artilleryman, or the cavalry. You know your history, or you think you know your history, chances are they've got exactly what you're looking for. They even have a lot of cool mess kit stuff that I've shipped out, and a lot of other cool camping gear stuff. So if you really want to rough it like it's the 1800s, please check out ccsutlery.com. Now you might be wondering why would we be represented by a sutlery specifically? Well, this one just happens to have a lot of studio contracts. I actually shipped something to a studio. No, I'm not going to say which one, but I did recently, and I got excited. I was like, this one's going to Hollywood, and I know what this is for. And also, just one of the top competing providers of most every single Civil War type of, whether it's a national park or a regiment or any kind of battalion. Last time we checked our numbers, we are pretty much the primary provider for the Buffalo Soldiers. So please check us out, ccsutlery.com. The old man.
On that note, also feel free to take a second real quick, close the chat, give us a thumb, subscribe. We need it.
Yes.
That's how we tell YouTube we matter. It's how we make the rounds in YouTube. So if you're here, you got a second, please
like and subscribe.
Please help
Please
us out. That's the only way YouTube knows we matter.
Yeah, exactly. We actually love doing this show weekly. We want to start doing more shows, but to do that, we need to make time, and to get time, we need money. And so we do appreciate all the support that we have gotten so far, especially from these earlier members. We are potentially putting out a special membership that'll go along with some t-shirt merchandise, but we're still figuring that out on Journal. But it looks like, Orion, you're going to like this. I've already got a shirt design. We're shooting for October for our first membership shirt. Guess what the theme's going to be?
Halloween stuff?
Yeah, I've already got an idea. So, John, take this down. I want a TWB jack-o'-lantern, obviously, with the font and everything orange. And then I want Orion riding a broomstick speeder bike in the background. That will be one of our first. We might try to do 2 October designs, so I might, maybe do something. Oh, you know what? We could dedicate one to Mom. That might be a good idea. Yeah, she was born and unfortunately departed us in October, so.
Fair. I've got a design for you there, John. It's a Harley, but the bottom of the Harley is a broom.
That's exactly what I want.
Do you want a propulsion system or not?
The broom is the propulsion system.
I mean more of like, do you want to see a form of propulsion, like whoop, 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 coming off the broom?
I don't think it needs it.
All right.
And because you know what they say, right? Save the broom, ride the witch. Just saying.
I thought it was save a horse, ride a cowboy, but I guess I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
Okay, but to be fair, I'm way cooler. So.
Big facts.
All right. So the old man. All right. Guys,
old man.
It is remarkable how much can happen in an episode where nothing actually really happened.
That's what I love this show.
Yeah.
Hold on. You know what? Let me before you get into it, let me make sure. Is there anything we need to discuss that we did not like? Just yes or no, not to discuss it. All right, general discussion it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was a little sluggish, but that's really the only thing I have.
Yeah,
which isn't really a complaint.
Well, I mean, and considering how much physical action we've gotten, I think we got just as much verbal action this time around. Right?
Yeah.
That is something we can clearly take away from this. I mean, we've got John Lithgow's character confronting the daughter.
Whoa. Summary time, please.
Okay. All right. Let me
Quick
pull it all
recap.
back. Okay. So we'll start with Harper and Angela, or should I say Angela, since her name is actually Emily Chase, and even then we're not sure Chase is the last name. Harper, to my surprise, has figured out Angela's secret identity, and he's understandably livid with her for acting as a mole and putting both him and her in a situation so destructive, not only to their careers, but potentially their lives. She'll have to make a decision about which side she's on before the plane lands, he tells her. But he's not the only passenger who's figured something out about his seatmate. Angela /Emily knows that Harper sent an assassin to kill her father. She also knows that he brought up her mother's real name, Balor, in the meeting with the Afghan warlord, Faraz Hamzad. I believe I'm saying that right. Just to kind of, stick it to her and act no different, she says, from her wielding his dead son's name like a knife against him. Throughout all these exchanges, the actors do indeed use words like weapons, right? And that's just friggin' awesome, right? We have, let's see, we have the father of both of the old men here, planning a hit on both sons, right? We have Zoe actually showing off a little bit of her talent here as well, working with our old man here to get shit done. And it's a really impressive, like I said, for not much happening plot movement wise, the amount of character development that went down in this one was huge. So it's really hard to give a summary without, giving everybody's backstory and why those conversations mattered.
Yeah, that's why I know we're kind of late in the game on this for all of it, but it's just you're doing good, and that's just what I want to do is a quick 5-minute assessment, because the thing is, I realized too, we might be getting viewers and listeners that are coming to us to see if it's even worth their time. And that's a potential, it's potentially building not only a new fan for the show, but also a fan for TWB. And so that's why I was like, you know what, we need to be doing quick little summaries. Doesn't have to be super long, extravagant, or detailed, but just a quick, here's what happened, and this is why we hated it, or loved it, or found it to be okay.
Well, I would say that for all the physical fighting we've had in the previous episodes, we got enough verbal sparring here to, satiate my bloodlust. We had some serious, yeah, right? Yeah, something along those lines. I'll show you an image I got. I think you'll like it.
Rough sketch right out the gate.
Yeah. But, we had, the amount of verbal fencing here was just impressive. And the actors involved, we really saw their acting chops on display. I really feel like we got just a masterclass in how to have a fight with words.
Yeah.
Right. And not just one, but we had multiple.
Yeah.
And that's impressive.
They weren't even they weren't cutting in the way that kids cut at each other either.
No.
They weren't like, oh no, you're a meanie. No. I'm right because I tried to do this right. But in reality, it's no, these, especially I love this scene where she brings up you brought up my mom just to see if I would react. And that's the same as if I brought up Chip just to see if you would react. And he was like, wait, am I the bad guy?
Right?
She took the time to really attack the actual problem. And then the same thing, you brought in an assassin to kill my dad. And why did you do that? To cover up your treason, which you're accusing me of and yelling at me for, right? 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 And he's like,
Yeah, like, do you want to be pot or kettle here? You know, like
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's the verbal jousting we got. It was not this kind of like, oh, I'm smarter than you. Oh, I'm better than you. No, it was like, you're calling me the worst person you've ever met, and you're literally doing all of it at the same time. And I watched, and I was here, and I covered for you. You remember that? You remember when I covered for you, and now you're debating on whether or not you can cover for me? Well, remember that I covered for you, and I didn't even have to talk to you about it.
And this is what makes a really good spy thriller too, right?
Mhm.
It's not just the, you know, chase scenes and the random fights in hallways or what have you. No. It's moments like this where you actually are sitting down and looking at each character and going, ooh, can they really trust this guy? Whose side are they really on? And I mean, you keep coming back to the same conclusion at the end of every episode. Every single one of these characters is on their side. Or, you know, what I'm going to argue is they 100% believe they are on the winning side. Whatever the winning side happens to be, they're going to be on it.
Well,
And they're making sure that they've got themselves covered to be able to do it.
my boss is actually convinced that the owner of CNC Sutler, he's convinced that that she's actually just that she is not Jeff Bridges' biological daughter. That she is actually I can't remember the guy that started all this mess.
Ram Hazad.
Yeah, Ram Hazad. He thinks that
Ram.
biologically she is his daughter, and that Jeff Bridges raised her as a kid, and then of course John Lithgow is now that father figure. So she has 3 daddies possibly. And I didn't really have much to contribute to that idea because I still have no idea what the hell is going on. We're like,
Well,
what,
I think it's
4 or 5
entirely-
episodes deep now?
5 out of 10 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Or no, 5 out of 7.
Oh,
and we're still-
Oh, now I'm sad.
Don't worry, it's getting a season 2. It's been confirmed already.
Obviously. And
Good.
this show's so good.
Oh, it deserves like 30
Episode
seasons
1 and 2
already.
told me it had to. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's no
30
way you could
seasons,
get
Jeff
30
Bridges is
seasons
not gonna
out of
live
them.
that long.
They'd be
30.
running around with walkers, fighting walker to walker.
Last time,
Kingpin!
we fought over the apple shot. This
Yeah,
is
exactly.
just
right?
like when I helped you
It's just
smuggle that
All
woman
in
out
an
of
old people home.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Just
trying to
Third
think
Rock
of-
from
think
the
of a good
Sun,
acronym,
but
yeah.
in a,
Yeah,
just turns into Third Rock from the Sun, but in an old people's home.
but yeah, I mean, like honestly, like we're seeing the best parts of spy thrillers on
And
display.
the best pacing for a spy thriller, and not one that like we don't come into this one going, oh yeah, it's just James Bond as an old man, or oh yeah, we know this character who he's supposed to resemble. Instead, it is, this is a spy thriller.
Yep.
Do you want to know why? Pay attention. And then when you pay attention, you're like, wow, I kind of feel a little bit like a spy. And that's good writing. That makes it fun. That makes something to enjoy. And then like as our discussion, like the questions I have for you guys even is like, what do you think is coming next? Right? Because like we're seeing this like mild romance, but the romance feels more forced from the character to the character. Like Jeff Bridges' character is very clearly relying on this civilian to remind him what it means to be a civilian in case he goes too dark. And so for that, he is putting an effort to build a relationship, but he's still forcing it because he's like, I'm only doing this so that you can be my totem pole. You can be my new metric of good. And that feels like what a spy would have to do, especially a morally, ethically gray spy who wants to still be a good American, according to, I think that's the way he kind of acts, but he just wants to be a good human in general, but he doesn't know what that means because it's so easy for him to kill somebody.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, right? Nobody thinks they're the villain of their own story,
Right?
right?
That's a great point. Yeah.
And this is exactly what's kind of coming across here, right? Is there isn't a really a quote unquote good guy in this series. There's just a bunch of people being people here, but all of them think they're on the right path, right? I mean, is there a doubt in your mind that John Lithgow's character doesn't 100% believe he's doing the right thing? Is there a doubt in your mind that even Zoe 100% does not believe she's doing the right thing?
There is a doubt, but it's because of this episode.
Okay, fair.
That, like, it ended with that doubt. Like, it took until this episode where she finally was like, I'm gonna go help him. You should too.
Yeah.
And that was finally like, oh, I'm being framed. And I also sent an assassin to kill my best friend.
Right.
/ brother. Like, that was the first time we saw any doubt, and it was reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm. But he doesn't, I doubt he's going to 100% be like, oh my God, I 100% have to take responsibility for the fact that I just tried to kill a dude that I probably shouldn't have tried to kill. No. He's doing everything as far as he's concerned as a necessary evil, right?
I bet you money Emily's going to say, like, tell her father that she knew, like, that he was the one that called the assassin, and her dad's going to be like, yeah, that's what I would have done if I was in his shoes too.
Yeah.
Obviously. Like, they're just gonna gloss over it as friends, like.
Yeah, it's like, no, like, this is what we do, right? But I mean, like, this series, like, this TV series is like, the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions? Like, these dudes are masons at this point, right? Like, they're road workers, man. Like, every one of them here. But they're doing it with, like, but their intentions are good. Their cause is righteous. And that's what makes it so fascinating.
Well, and if we even really listen to it, like, especially, like, what we learn more and more about Faram Hamzad, what we learn about the main character, Jeff Bridges' character, I can never remember his name, but, like, his whole experience with Emily's mom is so much more along the lines of it's similar to Pocahontas in terms of John Smith showing up, meeting somebody that has moral, ethical, and leadership qualities all being displayed, and then, like, Pocahontas turns out to be like, no, there's only one way Faram Hamzad does not become Saddam Hussein. There's only one way he does this right. And basically, after everything we learned in this episode, it kind of feels like he didn't. It kind of feels like everything she wanted for him failed, and now suddenly it's like, yeah, I see why she left. She accidentally created a dictator.
Whoops.
Yeah, but, well, not even accidentally. She intentionally did everything she could to prevent a dictator, and he still came to be. Which, as far as, like, like, protect your homeland, fight for your homeland, once the guy that's your husband becomes the dictator and you did every single thing you could to prevent that, like, the wife there's no way she's going to be able to change a dictator, a fresh dictator who's actually making money. Like, he's going to be like, no, you're wrong, woman. I obviously know what I'm doing. I'm now the dictator. And she's like, no, you're being mean. And he's like, yeah, because I rule with fear. And it's like, how do I ever get you to figure out the moral conundrum? Because nobody else is going to. And she's like, I'm out. I'm done. I don't love you. I was forced into marriage with you at 13, and you failed to be the man that I desired to marry, and I even tried to help. I'm out. Like, that's the time you quit. When you do every single thing you can, and that person still ends up being the worst person you know, leave. It's their bad at that point, not yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the show. That's the effort. That's the rhetoric that you were describing earlier. Like, all of these conversations are being had. We're not extrapolating. We're not making this make sense. Every conversation happened. Every word was said. Every bit of it was explained and thoroughly felt.
You 100% get the feeling that the author really put in the time to do the math and figure this all out so that it was going to make logical and, like, emotional sense throughout the entire series.
I'm excited to read the book. Like when we do the series ender, and then I think the following week after that, we're scheduled to the book the show comparison, and then we'll give our final rating on this show. I mean, this is exactly the cure I needed for Kenobi. I mean, it's different universes and all that, but this is what good writing. And that's just it, guys. It doesn't matter what universe you're watching a story in. Writing, good storytelling, is supposed to be universal.
Oh yeah, like you could 100%, like, you know, being a Deep Space Nine person, you 100% could see this being like a Garrick like side series,
Dude.
and it would have been amazing.
Seriously. And you probably could have had Andrew Robinson come back and he'd be like, "Oh, just de-age me, it's fine." You know?
Yeah. Oh well, he'd be like, "Whatever, just slap the makeup on, let's do this."
Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean that's just it. And that's why we do that's why we're a variety review show, and that's probably what we'll always be. But that's what we try to promote is good writing overall. We try to promote the stuff we're excited about, but you know, here's what you're gonna get at TWB.
We select what we're excited about.
You're gonna get honest opinions regardless of what we pick. We're gonna give shows. Some shows we might give a little bit more credence to, or a little more leeway for each of us respectively because of what we love. But at the end of the day, we're not going to pretend to like something, and we're not going to pretend to hate it either. We don't do bandwagons. We do honest stuff. Last week was an honest review of how I felt about Strange New World Episode 9 and the Star Trek community as a whole. I felt that those things needed to be said. But this isn't going to be, you know, I don't want to name anybody out by name, but it does feel like that some other people do try to stick with a niche that if they dislike something, they have to keep disliking it. And I am breaking myself of that thought process because I've done that before, and I'm choosing to try to find the best in this stuff. But
Yeah,
and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Be like, it's so terrible, it tastes like shit.
No,
It's
but
But see,
look-
no, that's actually a great thing to do, because we're not gonna gloss over its failures, but we're also not gonna harp on them and call everybody that took any part in it.
Right, we're
failure.
not gonna
Look
go
what we did
1
with
week
Kenobi.
it's a 7 out of 7, then the next week it's a 1 out of 7. I mean, if we get a show like that, I'll be impressed. But it's not gonna be a constant, you know, oh my god, it's amazing, and the next week, it's the worst piece of crap I've ever known. Oh my god, it's amazing. Sucks. Great. Sucks. And yeah, we're not doing, though that might be something we might want to do for April as a theme.
Well, and I'll say this too, like, at the very least, when you get a review from us, it's honest.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're gonna tell, even if we like something, we're still gonna point out the stuff that we're like, I wish they had done this slightly differently.
I'm gonna break
right?
my neck from agreeing with you so hard. Yes.
Or if we despise something, but we do see a glimmer of hope in it, we're gonna call that out, right? Like, I 100%, despite the fact that I really got annoyed at Strange New Worlds, dude, Hammer was awesome. He was like
I hope
like,
we're gonna get him for 10 years.
yeah,
Bro, he was the freaking magic man that was
Right?
worth listening to about magic. You know, doses of telepathy, doses of, you know, extrasensory ability, but not pulling
philosophy
on random
and-
stones.
and like pacifist but reasonable about it. Like, there was some solid stuff there. You know, and I'll admit I loved the character. I'll admit I wasn't a big fan of Noonien Singh at the beginning of the series. I thought this was a goofy kind of like cheesy thing, but you know, the character grew on me, right? The fact that we had a character that was so traumatized by the events of her past that it really did properly influence her actions going forward. Right? I loved the fact that when she was on the ship and there wasn't a crisis going on, she was a bit of a neurotic individual. But the minute everything is absolutely going to hell, the switch gets hit, she's back in, you know, like commando mode, and everything kind of makes sense for her when the world is falling apart. I know dudes like that, right? I lived with dudes like that. That is a real thing, and I love that they did that.
See, and that's just, here we are back at Strange New World. I don't have much trash to talk about the old man, as in none at all. I mean, I give the episode a 6 out of 7. I felt maybe some pain.
Oh.
But overall, the series is still a solid 7 for me. Star Trek, however, how much better, looking back at this whole season, would it have been if they just created some alien race, gave it a backstory, and then that was replacing? How much better would that have been? You would have had a strange new alien, sort of. Then it would have retconned aliens anyway, but that I would have been less butthurt over. Instead, they outright admit doing the retcon like it's a good thing, and it's like, no, you could have. The episode where they had the ship battle and they did the whole submarine, thing with the nebula, that would have been so much better with an enemy we've never seen before. Because I would have been more on the edge of my seat, like, oh, this is the real deal.
The Gorn are the perfect Romulan.
I
didn't know that. No. I mean, in terms of like all the scenes that we have with the Gorn could have been just instances where they ran into an unknown ship, because like I didn't know that we didn't know what the Romulans looked like until the moment that we see in this episode, right? Or the latest episode at the end. So like theoretically, we could have just never had. Right. And that's what I mean. It's like Balance of Terror is when we finally know what the Romulans look like. So the whole Gorn could have literally just been an excuse. Like they're blaming the Gorn for these Romulan attacks because nobody's ever seen Romulans before. And so we don't know what they look like. We don't know what they fly. We don't know what they're capable of. And therefore, these mystery fights, the 2 episodes that we had mystery opponents, what if they were Romulans? Like, then it follows all the normal Trek, still maintains the fact that they have no idea what Romulans look like. They never actually, aside from the parts where they actually interact with the Gorn for a few minutes and they freeze them and all that stuff.
Yeah, see, obviously it doesn't work for
clean up the episodes to fix the issues, but at the same time, it wouldn't have been a retcon, right? Because the episode where the Gorn showed up in the first episode that we see the Gorn with the submarine warfare, that would have been an awesome Romulan experience, right? They never actually shoot the ship. They never find the ship. The ship leaves. And they go, who or what was that? And it just keeps going. And you can even maintain Noonien Singh's relationship with the Gorn. You could even have the episode with the Gorn after that. But like the fact that you're just changing the rules because you can't figure out what the rules are or how to write a good story within the rules, that's bad effort. That's bad skill.
And it's just disingenuous to the framework that you're operating in,
especially when you're trying to bank on you said it came out in the 1960s, so it's almost an 80-year fandom. And you're trying to bank on that 80-year fandom, and then you're going to go out, disrespect it, and then call the fans racist, despite the fans are the ones that put the first black woman on national television, the original Uhura. The original Uhura was one of the first black main characters of all time.
Oh, dude, you want to talk first?
And you're going to call TOS fans, you're going to call any Star Trek fan a racist because you suck at writing?
Yeah, like, look, you want to talk first? Look, we're talking about, the first black person of authority on television. One of the first interracial kisses on television. Then, now we can talk about some of the other firsts that the next that original Trek has done. But let's just move on to let's move on to the animated series. First Native American command officer. Okay, then let's move on to Next Gen, where we got how many different? How about
psychologist in the future, because the mind actually matters,
right? Like them taking mental health seriously, them taking.
We still don't do that in America.
Yeah, we're talking about We're talking about a Next Gen series that tried to explore trans issues before they were issues. right? We can even then move on to Deep Space Nine. We had one of the first female kisses on Deep Space Nine, right? And that got a huge controversy, and it was and I love how CBS responded to that. You're upset about people being in love as opposed to, you know, what did you want? More people killing each other, right? Like, you wanted more violence? Like, what's wrong with you, right? The point is, Star Trek has been about those firsts, and they've been about, you know, going where nobody's gone before, right? And, you know, that's wonderful. You could have kept that going, though, here. You could have decided to do some very interesting bits and pieces along the way. I would have loved to have seen, instead of the Gorn episode, we get something like the TNG episode Peak Performance, where they do a war game episode. But what would be very interesting about it is something along the line of, we're not told it's a war game at the start of the episode. So we have like Una and Pike, like, you know, going at it. We think it's real. We don't realize that it's a war game. And we put the pieces together as it goes. That would have been a fantastic episode. And like, we further find out that they're playing out this war game after it was just supposed to be a standard war game, because there's somebody else watching it, like some alien species or whatever watching it, and they need to put on a big show of force to show that they're willing to fight, you know, tooth and nail, even each other if necessary, to prove the point that they're not to be trifled with. We could have had a great episode along those lines instead. There are places you can go to dip back into the well of Trek that don't necessarily, you know, feel like cheesy, just, you know, cashing in on everybody's favorite episodes. Like, I would love to see Strange New Worlds pick the worst episodes of Trek and turn them into something awesome because they decided to revisit them in a neat way.
That to me is what matters, is like, people are, they're giving odes, homage. They're attempting to, like with Kenobi, they waited until the last 45 seconds to say hello there, and then the next, like, the last 15 seconds to bring Qui-Gon Jinn in. And we all know why Disney did that. It's because they can't handle North Irish sensibilities, which admittedly are completely arrogant and ignorant, but that's Liam Neeson. That's where he came from. It's where he grew up. It's what he does. And the fact that Disney can't even stand by their own product, but, you know, we'll give a little bit of fan service to remind you that Qui-Gon Jinn was supposed to be here, but we don't like Liam Neeson, so we're not actually going to bring him in here. We're literally only going to do it for money.
Right there. That point that you just made. Okay? That is what we are trying to, man.
Yeah, we're trying to point out that, like,
entertainment, entertainment is apolitical.
You own the whole thing. If your actors are horrible, bigoted people, call them that. But your characters don't have to be. Your characters can always be completely morally and ethically sound. Your villains probably shouldn't be, otherwise they're going to be boring.
Let's not label the actors.
Yeah.
Let's look at their actions.
Like,
let's take their opinions and
their fans have
beliefs.
their feelings about them.
Right.
And then you just don't deal with it because it's not your problem.
And let's not judge the actors by their opinions, because opinions do not define who we are as a person. What I do is what defines me as a person. And, you know, unless my opinions are causing me to infringe on the rights of other people, they're just ideas, just opinions. I don't speak law into existence. Yeah, that'd be great if I had that power. I'm not gonna lie. I'll be an honest human with you guys right now. If I had absolute supreme power, I'd probably feel a lot better about my situation. We all would. Part of the condition of being. It's one of the things we have to struggle with and become honest with ourselves and be true to our nature, our survival. Well, here's the other thing. It's not in our nature to just want to kill everybody indiscriminately, right? I don't want to kill Corione because he chooses to be a witch in residence. I don't want to kill John because he's a dumbass. I just want to kill him because he's my little brother, but that's family feud. That's normal. Siblings always want to kill each other. But no, seriously though, all actual violence aside, I'm not going to murder somebody for having a different opinion over me. Okay, so we've already established we're not going to kill each other. So let's try and let's move back to our respectful discourse of remembering that we are not made up by our opinions. We are made up by our actions. And so yes, you're right, John. Disney's snubbing Liam Neeson, it's form of discrimination because they'll promote one opinion, yet they'll try to demote another, and they do it by punishing actors and actresses respectfully. And it needs to stop.
Let's not call it discrimination. Let's call it what it truly is. It's hypocrisy.
It
You want the money that Qui-Gon Jinn is going to bring, but you want to pretend like you have morals despite being founded by an anti-Semite white supremacist. Like, don't pretend like Disney,
Press 4 hasn't been canceled either.
the guy whose name everything your product comes from, wasn't an anti-Semitic white supremacist. Don't pretend
you want
like you're
you want
better
the
than
money
everybody.
shot on this one though? You want the money shot on hypocrisy?
Lay it on
Here
my
you go.
face, baby.
All right, Thor, Love, and freaking Thunder. Because here's why. And this is what ticks me off more than anything else that Disney has done in the last 20 years. Okay? Every single one of the MCU actresses that are playing heroines have gone off again and again and again about how horribly sexist some of this stuff is, about how they refuse to wear skimpy costumes that are, who cares if they're comically accurate, but show off the female form. How dare they? And they want equal
Still
billing
off the
and
female
attitude.
form. Disgusting.
Right. And they want
Not
equal
disgusting,
billing
that
and
was
equal
sarcasm.
respect and everything else like that with the men. And Disney's all like, well, we've heard you. We're going to be better. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to show respect to everybody and not, just do things for blatant fan service. And then what did they do in Love and Thunder? They show a naked Chris Hemsworth because it's cute for fan service for
cute?
women.
No, it
It's
was 100% sex. They were selling sex to kids.
It's
And,
sexism.
and let's not forget their little nod to Christianity too, because let's pretend like Christian God is one of the pantheon.
Well, you and I could debate that one wholly, but
Oh no, I
on a
agree with you
different
that it's one of the
show.
pantheon. I'm talking about their hypocrisy. Like they're pretending like gods aren't real, but then they're also going to keep a god in there because they don't want to lose their Christian group, but they also don't want to represent him because they don't want to acknowledge that they don't like
the
their
whole
Christian
thing
base.
But then
was
we don't-
a monument to hypocrisy, to sexism, and to pure insulting. And I'm just that took
Pandering, that's what it is. They're pandering. They're so bad at actually knowing their audience. Marketing 101, target audience. I'm going to keep saying it. David Ogilvy told you guys all how to do this many times over. Look at how he created Rolex and how he created what we know as the it's a car company.
So yeah,
Rolls-Royce. He built Rolls-Royce.
That
And
all being said, guys,
Disney
You see this right here? You
shit
see
about
this?
marketing.
See this? This is where, and it's on FX Network. This is where the people who well, no, these are the writers you need to hire. Forget your writers learning. They had their chance. They suck. They need to go away and be forgotten.
Just
These are the
because they're
people
your
you need to
kids
hire.
doesn't mean they're good.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm also going to say
Nepotism.
this. Get off your butts, apologize to Cameron Pasha, get him back on the staff.
And you know what? Get off your butts. Go apologize and do something good for society. Stop being tax evaders. Stop being the people that
Stop sucking
literally
up to
try
China.
to promote copyright. Yeah, stop licking China's dick. Like, we know for a fact they're not good people. They're enslaving
Hold on.
humans.
They're government. Chinese people. There are a lot of good people out there. Specifically, the Chinese government. The Chinese
There are
Communist
probably
Party.
individuals within the Chinese nation, wonderful human beings.
Billions of them.
Not make the Chinese people good because the Chinese people don't stand up to the Chinese government.
That's not
don't.
true. You
The
don't hear
Uyghurs and the
about it.
slaves are still exactly,
Yeah.
which means
Well-
the
Don't hear
people
about
as a whole don't. There are individuals that know what they're
don't
doing and
know
actually
that.
care about freedom.
Don't know that.
But-
Hong Kong would say
Well-
otherwise. But
With
anyway,
all of that in
and with
mind,
Hong Kong
guys,
forever,
let's
and Taiwan.
plug channels, shall we?
yes, yeah, we got 3 minutes left to quickly plug. We do want to shout out to DC3, who could not be here. He is now on nights, so hopefully we get some of his commentary in form of video recording if he's able to make the time. But unfortunately for us, fortunately for him, his career is continuing to move forward, and so we do miss him here tonight. But we are very happy for
In his corner.
Please, man, keep up the success, and we'll figure something out. If we have to do a daytime morning coffee show, you know what? I could use a different job anyway. Just kidding. I like my salary job. Also,
But do check out his Let's Plays, though.
yeah. Check him out. Throwback Thursday does a lot of the classic games, and then CC Karaoke, of course, who couldn't be here because he's doing live. He'll be back hopefully in October, maybe with the debut and rollout of our merchandise. But check him out if you want that. And then let's see who else we want to put. Corione also has his own channel. Check him out here on YouTube. He does his own stuff, representing his own ideas and opinions. If you want to learn more about being a British traditional witch, that manual is still being written, processed with each little video. But also, we're looking at possibly doing a supernatural type show for this network as well. More on that to come and get it figured. Also, just a quick shout out to Maria with T and Telly, and as well as Orville Nation, a part of the We Grow Together community. We aren't going to get anywhere if we try to pretend that we can actually compete with each other, because really we can't. We can, however, work together, because we do offer a variety of different ideas, and not just in pop culture discussion, but also philosophy, as well as just overall really good discussions from people who are actually there to talk to you. And that's why we're here, is because we like to have real discussion with real fans, and including ourselves, obviously. Anybody got anything else?
I think that's the big stuff. Also, check out Casual Phil on the weekends, where you can watch the Writer Brothers shoot at each other in various games, and hopefully actually hit for a change.
I'm Pete New York with the Writer Brothers. Thanks for watching. See you next week.